So spiders are arachnids. I think the really interesting question here is why aren't arachnids considered insects? So let's talk about the difference between insects and arachnids. So arachnids include spiders, scorpions, camel spiders, whip scorpions, pseudoscorpions, mites and ticks, apiliones like the harvestmen, the daddy longlegs that I was talking about where this comment comes from, and they're in their own class within the arthropods. This phylogeny of the phylum Arthropoda shows that the arachnids in the class Arachnida are evolutionarily distinct from the rest of the arthropods, including the insects, which is represented by that butterfly up there. And what's really interesting is that current estimates are that arachnids and insects haven't shared a common ancestor for 500 million years. These two groups, despite their similarities in appearance, have been evolving along independent lines for a long time, 500 million years. So how do we distinguish insects from arachnids? And I will say, I'm going to give you the general differences that will allow you to do that, but understand within both of these groups, there are species that have evolved modifications to these general rules, these body plans, that can make it a little more confusing to identify them. First, insects tend to have 6 legs arranged in 3 pairs, whereas arachnids tend to have 8 legs arranged in 4 pairs. Second, insects have 3 body segments. They have a head, a thorax, and an abdomen, whereas arachnids, most of them have only 2 body segments, a cephalothorax and an abdomen. Insects have antennae, and many of them have wings, whereas arachnids lack antennae, and none of them, as far as I know, have wings. Most insects have 2 compound eyes, whereas many arachnids have 6 to 8 simple eyes. But regardless of how many eyes an arachnid has, they do not have compound eyes like insects. And probably the biggest difference between insects and arachnids is one we don't think about that often, and that's the fact that insects, as they grow, go through larval stages, right? This wasp started out as a little larva, right? Kind of like a fly maggot. Moths and butterflies start out as caterpillars, and they all have to go through a metamorphosis to become adults. That differs markedly from what we see in the arachnids that hatch right out of their eggs as essentially mini adults, and they grow through their lives by molting, right? The body simply outgrows the exoskeleton and breaks through it. They molt that old exoskeleton. Fundamentally different life cycles and developmental strategies in these groups, reflecting in part that 500 million years of evolutionary distance that they've had to evolve along separate lineages.